Hello mate, welcome back to the Elliot Lake Football Channel. It was a great game yesterday, wasn't it? Liverpool, Manchester City was 2-2 and one of the best games of the season, in my opinion. Two teams which are just so streets ahead of everybody else in the division, maybe even in the world. They were just both amazing yesterday. It really had that feel of an really important maybe Champions League semi-final, even possibly a major tournament feel. Like the atmosphere in the pub I was watching in was brilliant. I think everyone was absolutely glued to their TV sets and I think everyone was glued to their TV watching this game and it didn't disappoint. There was moments of individual quality and the way the team set up just meant it was such a frantic first half. It died off a little bit in the second half, but all in all it was a great game. And I just want to give a little bit of a recap to the game on Sunday and where does this leave us in the race for the title. But in terms of the game itself yesterday, I thought Man City made a far better start and they deserved their first goal, albeit it was due to a slightly lucky deflection off Joel Matip into the bottom left-hand corner. But I think this goal maybe showed that Fabinho struggled certainly to keep with De Bruyne. De Bruyne was brilliant yesterday, and that goal, if you watch it back, you can just see Fabinho gives the foul away. And then it's a quick free kick to De Bruyne, who then just jogs past Fabinho like he's not even there. Fabinho can't foul him because he doesn't want to get a yellow so early on in the game. But De Bruyne then has a shot and it does luckily go in. But I think De Bruyne almost ran the show yesterday for Man City. He was just brilliant. The second goal, the equaliser through Diego Jota, assisted by Trent, was just a brilliant example of Liverpool how they can switch the play so quickly between Trent and Robbo. I think the ball fell out to Robertson on the left-hand side. He puts a really nice ball into Trent at the back post, who you just know has got that quality to cushion it back to Jota, ready for him to finish. It was just on a plate, and that's what Trent does so well. You can tell the difference between a good player and a great player when they do it in the big games, and Trent has obviously been racking up the assists all season, but it's in these big games which count, and he tends to do it in these games, and it's just a perfect layoff for Jota, and that obviously gets Liverpool back in the game. But then Man City definitely take the ascendancy in the last stage of this half. I might put a little graphic up to show you the momentum of the game in the first half. And you can see that apart from Liverpool's goal, they really weren't involved in much of the attacking energy in this game. And Man City fully deserved to go in front just before half-time. I think one of the really interesting selections, I think he got it absolutely right, Pep Guardiola, was selecting Gabriel Jesus on the right-hand side, because what that did is really stretch the game, because Liverpool were playing such a high line throughout the first half that those balls over the top they were really struggling to deal with at times. And because Robertson does like to get forward a little bit, and Jesus playing on that right-hand side like to stick a little bit further out than you would get if you had a Mahrez or a Foden on the right-hand side, they would like to come in. But I think because Robertson was sometimes quite out of position and Jesus was hugging that touchline, it meant that Van Dijk had to pull out a little bit, which is maybe an area that he's not necessarily as comfortable in. And I think that showed. I think that Van Dijk's nerves in the first half sort of rubbed off on the rest of that Liverpool team. And I think that selection of Gabriel Jesus really played a key role in that. So I think he got that absolutely right. I don't think anybody saw that selection of Jesus coming, but it definitely worked in the first half for me. And he ended up getting his goal because of it. It was again maybe a product of Liverpool being too keen to push up and get out. And Gabriel Jesus made a really nice run to be found by Cancelo and finished it really nicely. Alisson had a couple of really good saves in the first half and kept Liverpool in the game, because I think Man City could have blown him away had he not made those saves. But Man City, for me, fully deserved to go in front just before half-time. And Liverpool's equaliser at the start of the second half was brilliant play by Mo Salah. I thought he was quiet for a lot of the game, maybe still feeling a bit of a hangover from missing out on the World Cup, which I think any top player would feel. As a fan, I'm certainly disappointed that Mo Salah's not going to be in Qatar playing for Egypt, but he's certainly going to feel that disappointment. And apart from his assist yesterday, I thought he was fairly poor again. He certainly wasn't the Mo Salah which we're used to seeing in the Premier League, but he did find that moment of quality to find Mane, and that was maybe the only time in the whole game when Kyle Walker was found napping slightly. And you can't do that. You can't switch off at any moment, whether it's at the start of the first half, the second half, midway through either of the halves. Kyle Walker certainly fell asleep slightly then and allowed Mane to get in, and it's a good finish from Mane. And I personally wouldn't have started him in this game. I think Luis Diaz has shown his quality since he's come in, and I would have maybe started him on the left-hand side. But I think Mane showed that Klopp got that selection right, because he was probably the best of those front three players. Jota obviously got his goal, maybe wasn't involved as much as he would have liked to have been. Firmino maybe would have been slightly more effective, dropping in a little bit more. And Mo Salah, we've already talked about, was not necessarily completely on the money yesterday. But all things considered, I would probably say that Man City would be slightly happy with that result, even though they were the better team and deserved to win, because they still are in the ascendancy, being 1 point ahead. Maybe had they taken a few more chances, if Sterling is onside on that really close VAR call, then it could be a completely different story, and we'd be talking about Man City being 4 points clear in the title race and potentially it almost being over, given how good these two teams are. But that begs the question, where does that leave us in this title race? And if we bring up the fixture list here, we can see that the next two games for both these clubs is at home. And I think that they both should win the two of them. Man City have Brighton and Watford at home. And if they do win those games, then possibly people would stop saying that Man City aren't quite at their best. I think if they can put a few goals past Brighton and Watford, who aren't in the best form. I know Brighton got a really good 3 points against Arsenal on Saturday, but Watford can't really string any results together at the minute. Liverpool have Manchester United and Everton both at home, which usually would be a really tricky set of fixtures for Liverpool, but Man United are in a bit of a crisis at the minute. They just can't wait for the end of the season. I don't think they're going to go top four. Everton are fighting for their lives, but I think Liverpool are just going to have the quality over Everton on that day. So they both should pick up 6 points from the next two. Then I think it does get trickier once they hit the 30th of April. Leeds and Newcastle. Leeds starting to pick up a few more results under Jesse March. Under Jesse March, Leeds are beginning to pick up a few more results. And Newcastle away for Liverpool. Again, they're in much better form than they were when they played them earlier in the season. Eddie Howe's done a great job, so that could be maybe a bit of a tricky weekend. But then Liverpool, for me, Spurs at home on the 7th of May. Spurs are just brilliant at the minute. They look a completely different side now under Antonio Conte. They look fitter. They're playing better as a team. He's really getting the best out of that duo, Son and Kane, which maybe wasn't picked up enough at the start of the season under Nuno. So Spurs are going to be a really tricky fixture for Liverpool, and they're so clinical. They just need a couple of chances. And then Man City have Newcastle at home, which they should win. Man City also have a game to rearrange against Wolves, which could come at some point around that Newcastle-West Ham fixture, midweek one, depending on whether they get through in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid. So that Wolves away one could be tricky. Wolves will probably still be pushing for Europe, maybe a Europa League place instead of a Champions League place. They've probably slipped out of the running for that now, but that could be a tricky game. And Liverpool will play Villa away on May the 10th, which Steven Gerrard in charge of Villa, that is going to be such a big game, because deep down Gerrard will probably want Liverpool to win the league, but there's no way that he will still be doing his absolute utmost to get 3 points for Villa. That's going to be a really interesting occasion with Gerrard going back to Anfield. The fans are going to be in two minds, because they obviously want Gerrard not to do well at all while he's at Villa, but they will probably sing his name, let's be honest, because he's such a legend at Anfield. So that's going to be a tricky one for Liverpool. And then last two games of the season, Man City play West Ham away, and then Villa at home on the last game of the season, and Liverpool play Southampton away, and then Wolves at home on the last game of the season. Now, these two sets of fixtures, I think Man City's last two are actually more difficult than Liverpool's. I think West Ham away could be tricky depending on whether West Ham are still in Europe at that time. They could be preparing for a Europa League semi-final, Europa League final, depending if they get past Lyon later this week. So that could be a tricky one. They've obviously had a brilliant year again, following up from last year. And Liverpool should beat Southampton away, given how poor Southampton were against Chelsea the other day. They could have conceded 10 goals. They were really, really average. So Liverpool would expect to come away with 3 points there. And then the final game of the season, they're both playing teams from Birmingham. Liverpool play Wolves at home, which, if they've still got something to play for, I would expect Liverpool to win that game. But it's the Man City one for me. Aston Villa at home. Aston Villa have been in great form away from Villa Park in the last few weeks. I think they've won 4 of their last 5 away from home. So that could be tricky, especially Gerrard. Gerrard's going to really rev those boys up to get a result at the Etihad. And imagine that if Gerrard can manufacture something for his old club against Manchester City, it would be brilliant. So if you ask me what I think it's going to go down to the last day. I think they'll both draw one of the first 7 fixtures they have here. I think Liverpool will draw the Spurs one, Spurs at home, and I think Man City will draw the Wolves away game whenever that gets rescheduled. So I think it will go down to the last game of the season. I think Manchester City will go into that final game of the season on 93 points. And I think Liverpool will go into that final game on 92 points. I think there'll be 1 point in it. And then I think Steven Gerrard and Aston Villa will get something at the Etihad on the final game of the season to hand the title to Liverpool. As an England fan, I would love to see Jordan Henderson lift the trophy in front of the Anfield faithful. He's the best trophy lifter in the game, isn't he? It still gives me goosebumps when I see him lift the Champions League trophy and the Premier League trophy, although there was no fans there at the time. Jordan Henderson lifting the Premier League in front of those Liverpool supporters. I think it'll happen on the last game of the season and they'll win the league by 1 point. So there we have it. Liverpool to win the league on the last game of the season against Wolves by just 1 point. But if you disagree with me or you agree with me, I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below if you think Liverpool are going to win the league, if you think City are going to win the league, if you think Liverpool are going to do the treble, the quadruple, if you think Man City are going to do the treble. Let me know. And if you did enjoy the video, would love it if you could give it a big thumbs up. That would be amazing. And press the subscribe button if you haven't already. But until next time, thanks very much and have a lovely rest of your day.